how do you see the veil being lifted? I mean, this is one thing I kind of struggle with in watching this new alliance grow in power, and watching the new world order slowly lose power and dwindle away, which is fantastic. It couldn't make me happier. But when I see how splintered public sentiment is, or how splintered our country is, I mean, I don't see the masses, at least the brainwashed American masses, believing this. I mean, when the veil is lifted and okay, vaccines are poison and it's all a fraud, and yeah, your government has been putting in puppet presidents for the last 100 years, and the ones that weren't puppets we killed. I mean, I don't see how does it unfold? I guess how does mass public sentiment take the truth once it's presented to them, or will they?
I think it's going to come in two sides. It's going to come domestic and it's going to come foreign. Let me start with the foreign. Mm-hmm. I wrote some notes. I didn't get to it because I wander off in making my points. But Germany is not being the obedient Western ally to the Americans anymore. You may see what's her name? Oh gosh.
Merkel.
I'm going to call her Merlin.
Merlin the Wizard.
Okay, Angela Merlin. No, Angela Merkel is a really good mouthpiece, and few Americans realize that in her oath of office is sworn allegiance to the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. That's a consequence of losing World War II. Mm-hmm. Okay, but if you look at Germany, you see a divided nation. You see the elite running it from the European Commission and from the private banker set, not their central bank. Mm-hmm. I distinguish the Bundesbank as a good element. They've always been a good element. They've always been a prudent element, smart. Mm-hmm. But Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, 6 or 8 other banks in Germany, they're all in trouble. They're part of the Western elite, and they have allegiance to the European Central Bank and the European Union commissioners. Okay. You get down to the industrial level, that's where things break down. We call them the industrial captains in my colleague group in discussions. You could just come up with a list of 15 major German corporations. They're not in favor of what's going on. They don't like the ban against Russia, the sanctions against Russia.
Right.
They don't like any of it. They don't like losing their clients that they've worked hard in the last 20, 30 years to develop, mm-hmm. and especially the last 15 years since the fall of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Iron Curtain in Eastern Europe. The Germans are really in charge of Eastern Europe. They're like satellite states for the economy. And then in came the Americans, broke all the NATO treaties, and have militarized Poland and Bulgaria and other nations. All right, so here's my point. Germany is not the good Western elite player when it comes to industry and business. Mm-hmm. And there are 2 deals that have taken place. This is all apart from supporting Russian military in their Syrian campaign against ISIS. There are 2 events that have taken place in Germany in just the last month. One was completion of Nord Stream. Okay, that's an LNG facility combined with a pipeline. Okay? That goes under the Bering Sea, under the North Sea, connects to Russia, connects to northern Germany. Okay. That's completed, or almost completed, and pledged to be completed. Okay. If the Russian sanctions were strong and uniformly applied, why would they have that successful completion? Well, because there's a lot of business investment in there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of German employment committed to that. Okay, but that goes against the Russian sanctions, does it not?
Sure.
Okay, the second one is something that's a little bit more from scratch. and that is a high-speed railway line going from Germany to Russia from scratch, announced a month ago.
Wow.
Not even a month ago. Okay, if the German sanctions, the European sanctions that Germany signed on to, and repeated again. Okay, the dictatorship in Europe is the European Union Commission. Mm-hmm. They're dictators. They're not a commission of nice guys who really got put there in place by all the European member nation leaders and in industrial forums. No. They were put in place by the Americans and British. They were put in place by the European elite who've sworn allegiance to the Rothschilds. Mm-hmm. So they had a meeting a few weeks ago, and they just rubber-stamped continuation of the Russian sanctions, even though almost all the member nations don't want them anymore. Okay, so you've got some division going on that's even apart from the NATO element and the Germans working with the Russians against ISIS. Okay, now for the domestic front. Okay, let me back up. You asked, what will it take to wake people up, to take the veil off?
Right.
When Germany has more open resistance to the European Union Commission and states that the Russian sanctions are not in our best interest, and states that they are not going to do the following that the Americans and British and French want to do, then you'll know what my father did. You get the kind of reaction that my father had when a year and a half ago I said, Dad, I've got a new forecast that Germany's going to flip east, ignore the sanctions, really go counter to NATO, and the big issue there is heroin transport with Rammstein, and they're going to flip east to ally with Germany, with Russia and China as part of the Eurasian trade zone. And his reaction was, whoa, you really think that could happen? And I said, yeah, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of damage to the German economy and their entire system, but yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to take time, a lot of time. He said, well, how much time? I said, well, I don't know, maybe a couple of years.
Yep.
Well, this summer will be a couple of years.
Yep.
And, time's moving quickly, but so's the breakdown happening quickly of the U.S.-German relations that have been tight. So when you say U.S.-German relations are tight, what can you point to? I think you can point to merely that the European Commission can successfully have their Angela Merkel mouthpiece repeat something. Mm-hmm. And that's not strong. You've got now parliamentary leaders in Germany saying we must stop these sanctions. So what influence do they have over the European Union commissioners? None. Mm-hmm. You have German bankers saying we don't like this. We have analysts and the bankers saying that the sanctions make no sense from a German perspective. Okay. They don't have influence over the commission either. And then we had something happen a month ago. Can't remember the woman's name, but she was the trade representative official in the European Commission. And she said, we're going to proceed signing the trade pact called the TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. It's the U.S. government's favored fascist trade union with Europe. Well, this woman said we're going to proceed to sign it, and some of the flack that she had at a news conference was, but wait a minute, almost no parliament in Europe wants it, and we've had 46 cities demonstrate against it. Mm-hmm. And her answer was beautiful. She said, I don't represent the people, I represent the commission. We don't take our mandate from the people.
Classic.
Well, that's what a fascist state is.
Yeah, no.
So what am I missing?
The fact
that Americans are going to read about what's going on in Europe and the fractures. Mm-hmm. I don't mean like Arab refugee fractures. I mean like the political leadership fractures on the American agenda and the NATO alliances. Okay. On the domestic side, Will, I think it's really going to come down to one big thing for waking up Americans. Mm-hmm. Some big banks are going to fail, and they're going to steal a lot of money, and they're going to call it bail-ins.
Right.
And Americans like my brother are going to say, but wait a minute. I had a 6-figure bank account there.
Yep.
And then they're going to get a message from me. I told you so 4 times. Mm-hmm. But the big banks are the safest, Jim. They're the biggest. They're the most liquid. They have the most staying power. They have the history. I said, they're the most insolvent. Wake up.
Yeah.
You're not going to read about this in your lovely New York Times.
Well, people's money, when you start playing with people's money, they're the fruits of their labor, their hard-earned savings, the things that it's the fruits of our labor. It's the stuff that, we get up every morning, we go do what we do, and then we come home and we sacrifice all these things to go do what we do so that we can put these little nuggets of fruit away and save them for a rainy day. We can all relate on that when we're stolen from. When
they're not going to be able to put their kids through college. Sorry, Johnny. Sorry, Susie. I know you're a junior and senior in high school, but it doesn't look that good for your prospects for going to college.
Jim, what do you think is going to be the scapegoat by these? Okay, a couple big banks go under, and a chunk of Americans lose their 401ks or their bank accounts. Who are they going to blame it on? Iran for dumping oil? I mean, who's going to be the scapegoat?
Iran, Russia, and the Saudis.
Yeah,
they're gonna try to paint it as a consequence for the oil.
And then incite World War III. I mean, these guys are just itching at
the bit. World War III started a while ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't buy these definitions.
Yeah, you're right.
Ukraine was World War III.
Uh-huh.
And it spread to Syria. And it spread to Turkey. So we have 3 countries now involved in World War III.
No, you're right. It's a matter of can we stop it?
Well, I think it's going to spread to Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to spread to Iran. We already have a war in Yemen. That's the southern border to the Saudis. Mm-hmm. I just saw a map the other day. I got to mention this because, I'm a pretty honest broker when it comes to data and analysis and information. It was a map of Saudi Arabia and its neighbors for the Shiite population and the Sunni population and a couple other elements that are really not either Sunni or Shiite. Mm-hmm. And there's not as much Shiite red zone in western Saudi Arabia as I thought. I was saying that a lot of western oil fields in Saudi Arabia could be overrun by Shiite elements because that's what the dominant favor is in those regions. Mm-hmm. And it's really not. It's more like the southern border and the southwest border of Saudi Arabia. But there are some oil fields there, and they're at risk. But, this war, take a look at the war in Yemen. Is it not pretty much timed with Ukraine? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So World War III is basically part of the, what was the name of the fellow who wrote in 1890? It was the elite's plan for World War III, Christian versus Muslim. Can't think. It starts with a P. Page. I can't think of his name. I've got a colleague on my gang who's read extensively about that and reports to us. That's what the colleague group does for me. I didn't read about the elite 1890 plan for World War I, II, and III. World War I and II came off exactly as this fellow laid it out. He was like a warmonger planner for the elite 120 years ago. Well, now what they want to do is they want to have Christendom in a world war against Muslim
Holy war.
Islam.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to fight over oil resources, land, and wealth that's accumulated from the oil resource. We've already stolen the Arab gold in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're looking to steal the Yemen reserves. They've got energy reserves that have just been discovered. So I think Saudis are looking to expand and annex Yemen and take over the energy reserves because they're running low.
Mm-hmm.
In Gawar, they're producing 98% water, 2% oil.
Wow.
That's not how you make money.
No.
Gawar is a 55-year-old or more oil field. It's the biggest one in the history of mankind.
Wow.
In in world geology, and now it's pretty much depleted. But they've got other oil fields in Saudi, and now the Saudis have proposed. They haven't done it yet. I think they're doing like a feasibility study on how likely it would be to be successful. They're thinking about putting up a very large investment stake for sale in Aramco. And they're coming to learn you don't got shit possibility there, pal. You don't got nothing.
They need an exchange.
Why is that?
They don't
because the future of fossil fuels is in doubt now.
Mm-hmm.
Not because the global economy is going kaput. No, that's just exposing it. We got numerous new energy sources being made available, being proven, being tested, and being demonstrated. The Russians had a demo of cold fusion, and there are a couple of other that I don't really fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
The names pass by me. I get some quick descriptions, and I'm busy working for a few more weeks, and I'm really not on top of it.
Right.
But I think it's Keshi. Just imagine a massive fuel cell or a massive cold fusion center, no bigger than, say, oh gosh, what's a good example? A small storage shed.
Mm-hmm.
And it serves 80 homes in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's got virtually free electricity, and the cost associated for the neighborhoods who are going to have to come up with their own utilities all over again. I mean, following the Great Depression, the United States had one big success. And Roosevelt had the Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, and there were a lot of other things. It was, let's get the utilities together for public good to bring electricity, and they also had water, electricity to service the rural areas and the suburban areas of the country.
Of the country, yeah.
Okay, we're going to have to do that over again, but at the local level,
right,
80 homes at a time, where the cost that I was referring to is not going to be so much to buy the fuel and distribute it. No, the cost is going to be to set up
the infrastructure.
The infrastructure for delivering it.
Yep.
Because it's going to be largely free, which begs a huge question. If this is 20-year-old technology, where have we been?
Well, yeah, Jim, there's no doubt in my mind that there's a mushroom or a fungus or a seaweed somewhere that has some sort of something in it that could power, the planet or at least a neighborhood near you for free. Again, the cost is in setting up the infrastructure.
Well, I'm saying that we're 20 years behind the times.
Yeah, big energy has kept all this stuff under the curtain.
Exactly. That's my question. Rockefeller has suppressed it.
Yeah.
Rockefeller is not our friend. Rockefeller has suppressed really advanced carburetor systems, like what Volkswagen developed. That's why they earned the 13 or 19, I can't remember, I think it was $13 billion fine for emissions violations. It was all Mickey Mouse conjured up crap story. It's to keep Volkswagen and their 200-mile-per-gallon car off the American roads. what is their carburetor system? It's a hybrid.
Interesting.
It injects warmed up water into the carburetor where it mixes with the spray, like fuel injection for the gasoline. It's a hybrid combustion and steam system.
Yeah.
And it is 200 miles per gallon. But how does it heat the water, Will?
The engine?
From all the heat in the engine.
Yeah.
So it's a byproduct heat utilizer. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Man,
damn
I
near
remind
renewable.
Okay. But, quick question. What brand of car in Tianjin, China, suffered 3,000 car losses in the inventory lot?
Ooh, I got a guess for this one. VW.
Yeah, VW. So, do you think maybe they're related?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I suspect so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 10 years, it'll be crystal clear, yes. But now, guys like you and me are called crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we think outside the box. I just saw the movie The Big Short.
I haven't seen it
And there
yet.
was a critical moment in the beginning where Burry, played by Batman, I'm sorry, played by Christian Bale. I said to my gal, that's Batman. And she didn't say something silly like, where's his uniform? She said, oh, yeah. I said, do you recognize his voice? She said, no, but I recognize his face. Okay, there was a great scene in The Big Short, a critical scene, rather, where Burry was a hedge fund manager, and he wanted to go long on the credit default swap against mortgage bonds. Okay? But he had to convince Goldman Sachs to create one because there had only existed at the time credit default swaps against corporate bonds and government bonds. So they laughed at him in the Goldman Sachs offices until he made a 500% gain 2 years later, where those young whippersnappers were probably sent out the door. But here's what I'm driving at. Burry had to explain to the director that he answered to at his hedge fund. And at one point, he said something with an expletive, I want our money back. Because Burry committed, I believe, $200 million. And he got back $1.3 billion for his investors after having to beg them to stay the course. But the big argument was convincing his manager, his director of the hedge fund. You know, everybody answers to somebody. There's always the hierarchy, and it could be that your boss is really just your government, whatever.
Sure.
Okay. But the argument went like this. I don't remember the character's name. I'll just call him the director. The director said to Batman, I'm sorry, I love having fun. The director said to Burry, who was played by Christian Bale, do you think you're smarter than Alan Greenspan? And Burry said something, I don't have it exactly down, but I caught the gist. He said, well, I'm not sure Greenspan really dug into the data like I did. Well, what data did you dig into, Burry? He said, well, I looked into several of the mortgage bonds and what the secured income stream was for them and what the default rates were and what their late rates were. You did what? Nobody does that. Okay, so therefore, he was more thorough than Greenspan.
Right.
And I walked away and I told my gal several different things. And one of them I said was, Greenspan had a second paycheck from the Queen of England and maybe a third paycheck from Basel, Switzerland. I said he had multiple motives. And the other character who was significant in the movie was Stephen Cannell. His most famous role that I remember is playing the 40-year-old virgin, and he was spectacular in it.
Yes.
And I just saw parts of that movie again a couple nights ago. But he's been in a lot of movies. He was in the comedy where he played the Noah building an ark outside suburban Washington, and all his hair started growing, and he had a white beard, and he had a big scepter. Anyway, okay, Stephen Cannell. I don't. Oh gosh, this is going to be delicate territory, but both Cannell and his wife. His name was Baum, B-A-U-M, and I don't believe that's Irish Catholic, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
And I don't think Cannell goes to temple every Saturday night. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had two Goem playing Baum and his wife. Marisa Tomei, I think, is Italian. Okay? I don't think she goes to temple on Saturday night.
Right.
But Baum actually said toward the end, these bankers knew what they were doing. They knew they were destroying the system. They knew the government was going to bail them out. Mm-hmm. They knew what they were doing. Very important point to the movie. And I have a regular habit. We like to sit in the second row. We see a number of movies together. She's a lot of fun to go to the movies with. She has a little bit of English, and she likes to learn more by going to movies and reading the subtitles. Sometimes, if the conversation is real fast, the subtitles move quickly. Mm-hmm. But I have a habit of looking back. How many people are in the audience? And to be honest, if we're seeing, like Mad Max on a Wednesday at a 4 p.m. show, there might only be 12 people in the theater. Mm-hmm. Or not the theater, they call them a sala, in that particular show. Yep. In the audience for that show. But I turned around for The Big Short, which was English in Spanish subtitles, and I love reading the Spanish subtitles. Yep. Because I learn more words. Yep. I develop my vocabulary. And I learned how they use terms like default, impago. Mm-hmm. I-M-P-A-G, unpaid, it basically means. Yep. Impago, tasa de impago. I learned a lot. They have a complicated word for mortgage default. I can't remember. Incomplimento, something like that. Anyway, for this Big Short movie, Will, it wasn't packed. It was 3/4 full. They want to know what happened to the U.S. financial system. Interesting. Yeah, and it was much more than most movies. The only movies recently that I've seen with a bigger crowd were Iron Man, Avengers, and Star Wars. I was going to guess Star Wars, yeah. Interesting. Well, I think the public interest, whether it be domestic or international, in learning this story is only going to get greater and greater as it unfolds. And that story being the demise, the collapse of Western, economic and financial systems as we know them. And we're watching it take place. I mean, it's unprecedented. I got a text there a moment ago from my partner. Dow is, pushing 3% down for the day. We're in the red, 500 and some odd points now. It's. You're talking about today, really now? Just as of now, yeah. It looks like 458 now, but just not 5 minutes ago, it was. What do these idiots on CNBC say that it's going to rebound quickly because the economy's strong? What do these idiots say? Oh, Jim, this is the buying opportunity of a lifetime. Come on. No, is that what they say? I can't imagine. I don't know. In fact, I was just looking at a recent article for Dave Haggethan. It was talking about how so many of the headlines now in mainstream media are turning sour. I mean, the bad news is really unhideable at this point. Well, yeah, it's like the 800-pound gorilla at the dinner table. How can you say that it's not there? It's like someone took a giant excrement in the middle of your dinner table and no one wants to talk about it. Would you pass the meatballs, please? Yeah. Well, Jim,
I want to be respectful of time. So maybe we'll wrap up at this point. But it's always a blast having you on today. We kind of winged it, so I hope we covered some good information for everybody. There's so much going on. I don't even know where to start these days. But as always, man, love having you on. Check out the Golden Jackass website, you guys, goldenjackass.com. We'll, of course, have links. You can find Jim's hat trick letter on there that he is the editor of, and he's got a whole team of folks around the world that help him put that together, and it's nothing shy of amazing. So, Jim, anything else you want to add, my brother? But at this point, I really appreciate it.
I think the level of public awareness is really accelerating now. Mm-hmm. And that's going to make things doubly dangerous because the smart among them are pulling out. I've been saying for a good 2 months, sell your mutual fund because the Fed and the Wall Street banks are propping them up. Mm-hmm. You'll get a good price, but you got to do this early. Yep. And buy into gold and silver, which the same people are keeping down in price. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what it's all about? Selling high and buying low? Yep. No, not the way the American public tends to work. I want to buy something that's going up. Mm-hmm. And if it's already gone up a lot, I'll still buy it because I think it'll continue forever. Mm-hmm. I mean, the old saying is, trees don't grow to the sky. Mm-hmm. And we're getting late here. Yeah. The Voice told me in mid-November, the plug has been pulled. And we've gotten more recently other comments about breakdowns. And he said Saudi Arabia is in a full-bore breakdown for their government right now, he said. And he said it's going to spread to the United Arab Emirates. So we get into a discussion. I said, well, don't they have $1 trillion in sovereign wealth fund? And he said, that's pretty much Abu Dhabi, not Dubai. So the Dubai side is going to cause the faltering. They're broke. And there's some controversy that I honestly don't fully understand yet about gold as it relates to Dubai. And it looks like that maybe the Americans have their finger in some more fraud.
Imagine that.
No, I think we're late in the game, and what's going to happen in the next couple of years, Will, is that the Anglo-Americans are going to lose control, have respect lost for them, and are not going to be given significant roles in the next chapter. In other words, U.S. I don't know what to call it, Anglo-Americans. I don't like that term, but you know what I mean. The Anglo-Americans, both the U.S. and the British, the Anglo-Americans are going to be they're going to be eliminated from the control rooms because they have a century of history for mucking them up, for stealing and causing wars. And it's basically the Rothschilds, Wall Street, and Bush.
So I should start studying Mandarin with my children, huh?
Well, it would enable them to probably thrive in their professional lives. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was surprised how much Mandarin was taught here in San Jose, Costa Rica. I know someone who's actually studying it now. And, when I walk up to the person, I go, "Hao ji la?"
That's like, I've got an app on the iPhone, and I'm an expert already. It's great.
What I said was, "Hi, how are you?" But I know how to say thank you. It's shin shin. Shen shen with an E.
All I've got at this point is like man, woman, boy, girl. I am a man. 我是男人, which I believe is I am a man. Anyway, it's fun.
I am a man. Okay, well that's great to know that you're a man, Will, because I was wondering.
Well, with the Michelle Obama conversation, I thought, what better timing?
Oh, by the way, Joan Rivers is not dead.
Oh, really? Well, it's funny.
No. Many sightings in Los Angeles. She's got a gag order on her.
Unreal. Well, I found it. I almost brought this up in the interview earlier when you were talking about Michelle or Michael, and I mentioned, wasn't it funny timing that Rivers came out and said publicly, "Oh, Michelle's a tranny. Everybody knows it." I think that's what she said verbatim. And then what was it, a week later that she died?
No, a week later she had the faked death incident.
Yeah.
Where she was kicked off her show, and she was told that if you persist in this, you will be killed.
Yep.
But she basically got the opposite side of the room, same treatment that Kenneth Lay got of Exxon. I'm sorry, of Enron. Kenneth Lay is enjoying the good life in the Bahama Islands.
Quietly, of course.
And if he violates it, he'll be in big, big trouble.
Interesting.
Because his estate has already been divided after his faked death.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the mutant culture that we have, Will.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm curious when you're going to start to see the Wall Street banks attack and kill each other. No, I'm serious.
Like actual...
I'm deadly serious because Lehman and Bear Stearns... Okay, just a quick finale.
Yep.
Why was Bear Stearns the first Wall Street bank to go? Because they were long gold and short the dollar.
I was going to say silver derivatives. Or I thought it was silver short. Anyway, yeah.
Did I say long? Did I say long gold? I meant to say long gold. Long gold and silver.
Yep.
And short the dollar.
And short the dollar.
Okay, so they were expendable. And by the way, the CEO of Bear Stearns was in the movie Big Short.
Interesting, yeah.
Where during a staged debate between Baum, who argued that the whole system knew that they were destroying, the bankers knew they were destroying the system. Yep. Okay, with Baum versus the Bears CEO, during that whole debate, the Bear Stearns stock dropped 38%. And he was claiming that it was a good buying opportunity. I'll buy more. Well, apparently he got liquidated, didn't he not? Okay, so Bear Stearns was eliminated because they were on the wrong side of the consensus corrupt Wall Street. Mm-hmm. They liked gold and silver. Okay, why was Lehman killed? Because I had thought, honestly, I mean, I admit where I'm wrong. I hope I'm not wrong a lot, but I thought Lehman was the king of mortgage bonds. Well, they were about 5 years before the breakdown with the subprimes in 07 and 08. Mm-hmm. They were. But Goldman Sachs was the biggest. So Goldman Sachs needed to kill somebody in order to get attention, in order to put under national aegis AIG and Fannie Mae. Mm-hmm. They needed to put AIG under national U.S. government receivership so that Goldman Sachs could get 100 cents on the dollar for all their complex investments related to the housing sector. Mm-hmm. Nobody else got 100 cents, only Goldman Sachs did. How did they kill Lehman? JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs conspired together not to make any payments on clearing of any Lehman Brothers investment sale. Mm-hmm. So they strangled them. Right. And why was Fannie Mae nationalized? Well, easy, because China was selling their bonds gangbusters, mm-hmm. which accelerated and might have precipitated the subprime collapse. Huh. Okay, so now my big question is, how long before JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs decide together, maybe with Citigroup, those mm-hmm. are the three biggest uglies. Mm-hmm. Bank of America they're ugly, but they're just the biggest Bush narcotics processing plant for money. But Citigroup is where Rubin hangs out. JP Morgan used to run the Fed, and Goldman Sachs runs the Treasury Department. That big three, I think, is going to conspire to kill all the other Wall Street banks.
Wow, I was going to say which one.
All.
Holy shit.
Now, I think they're going to find a way to kill Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Wachovia. And who's left? Morgan Stanley, I think, is under Bank of America now.
Yeah.
Who's left? So when this is done, I would not be surprised if for a while Citigroup, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs are the only ones left.
Wow.
Because they're going to try to kill the rest.
And that actually really makes perfect sense. I mean, knowing how everything is patched together, it makes perfect sense. Let all the banks fail except for the big three, very interesting, who are also complicit in killing the rest of them along the way. Jim, I really, man, I tell you,
I want to see Goldman Sachs destroyed.
Yeah, I've told you before. I feel like the veil will be feeling more of a lift. That I'll feel more of a when we start seeing Jamie Dimons of the world getting picked off by snipers. But I don't think we're quite there yet.
Oh, I never advocate stuff like that. I want them to go to jail, have a public trial, be sentenced for life in prison on a triple lifetime sentence, which means no parole. I want some of them to be hanged. I want some treason charges, and I'd like the treason charges to start with Hillary.
I would agree there. How do we this time? How do we make sure that we don't forget as a culture again? How do we what's our next Bill of Rights or Declaration of Independence? I mean, how do we make sure this crap didn't happen again in another 50, 100, 200 years,
The only way I know is if the government is dissolved and we have a new constitutional Congress. But I think it's going to be a little bit weirder than that. I think it's going to be more like foreign-run tribunals. And I don't want to get into that right now because that's a bit weird, and people might think it's just too far out there.
We'll save it for our next interview or maybe the one after, and by then I promise you it'll be like normal talk.
Here's a forecast. I don't want to call it a forecast. Here's a suspicion that I think might come to pass very soon. Bill Clinton might turn on Hillary to save his skin, much like, when you got two characters in the police precinct and they've got them in two different rooms, and they say to the two of them, whoever sings first and rats the other out will get immunity or get a much lighter, lenient treatment. I think that's going on with Bill and Hillary now. And what they've done is they've used the Clinton Foundation for treason, for selling State Department policy, foreign policy, selling the Russians uranium, doing a lot of things. Hillary's got 3 or 4 counts right now. And who is it? The FBI director is on record saying that if she's not prosecuted in 60 days, I'm resigning.
Wow.
I mean, usually, stuff like that goes on in the back room. That was a public statement that the FBI director made.
Yeah, and she's still running for president, mind you.
Running for president. I call treason the calling card for high office.
I like that.
Well, notice that when Hillary gets all this attention, it's from being Secretary of State in the Obama 1 administration. Bill's nowhere. Bill's doing speaker tours. Bill's chasing young tail. He's having a good time. The attention is not on Bill. The attention is on Hillary when she was in high office. I like to say to my brother, way back, I started in on Hillary. I said, John, tell me, Hillary's running for New York State Senator in the Congress. What are her qualifications? And that's pretty much what I heard, blank air. Now she's running for president. No, she was appointed Secretary of State in Obama 1, and I said to him again, what were her qualifications on foreign policy? I understand that she was a senator, but she didn't do jack. on foreign policy, and I don't know that a single piece of legislation had her name on it. And he said, I don't know. I think she'll be a good one, though. Okay, why? Because she's a Democrat? Yeah, well, you know, Republicans, they're not trustworthy. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, so there's an idiot talking. Mm-hmm. Now I say, what are her qualifications for being president? And the answer is much simpler now. Well, we've got a track record of treason. That's her track record. That's her qualification. And you've got actual military figures coming forward stating that everything Hillary commented on to the press, under oath, whatever, about Benghazi, Libya was a lie. You got the Pentagon opposing Hillary. Why? Because Navy SEALs died at the embassy in Libya. And Sarkozy is dragged into this, the ex-French president. He's dragged into this. He's ex-CIA. He actually had I don't know what to call it, a memo between the U.S. State Department and the French security agencies and government high offices. Mm-hmm. And they were basically saying, Gaddafi's got 143 tons of gold sitting in London. It's vulnerable to confiscation. All we need are some justifications for it. Sarkozy and Hillary were exchanging ideas that Gaddafi was trying to come up with an African gold dinar. Yep. For all North African oil producers in OPEC. So it was a good time to murder with state-sponsored approval. Yep. Gaddafi. This is and he ended up disemboweled in a culvert.
This is public news now, Jim. There was a RT had a segment out on this like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, well, don't you find it interesting that there are a number of new news organizations, networks, like RT, like Xinhua Net out of China, like SCMP, South China Morning Post, that's another popular one. Like I got quoted in Pravda a year ago. Uh-huh. And the Voice wrote me and said, Jim, you finally attained a certain level of status. And I said, well, what's behind that? And they said, they like your work.
Yeah, well, it's interesting whenever we have you on or we post some of your data, like your recent Double Barrel Hidden QE article, we get looking at our analytics on the website, we get traffic from Russia and from Germany that at least are noticeable, you know. So yeah, it's the message is global at this point. Well, buddy,
let's wrap it up, huh?
Let's wrap.
Go to www.goldenjackass.com, roam around, check the free stuff, and sign up for the newsletter. It's called the Hat Trick Letter. There are usually 2 publications, 2 reports per month. Sometimes, like this month, there's really less going on, or should I say fewer rooms that are actively producing events. Mm-hmm. So there are fewer chapters, I think, that I could report on. And I like, nowadays, I like hitting the higher level stuff. I don't need to point out that Wall Street banks are insolvent. Right. I made that point in 04, 5, 6, and 7, and now that's being proved correct.
Yep. Well, my friend, always a pleasure. The Hat Trick Letter is really the, you want a taste of what Jim has covered today. Today is a taste of what you can find in the Hat Trick Letter. He can go into great, great detail with them. So appreciate all you do, my friend, and it's always a pleasure, and look forward to doing this again in another month.